welcome back to another episode of MindMatters Perspectives. This season aims at bringing you stories and experiences from people from different parts of the world with different walks of life, sharing their stories, sharing their tales, and hopefully, in this process of us sharing with one another, we come to realize that we aren't alone and that we all have our own journeys, and when we share them with one another, we create a space of inclusivity, and we know that there's someone out there that understands what we're going through. There's someone out there who's gone through something similar, and it validates us and it validates our experience. So that's the aim, and in that hopes, we begin. Trigger warning before you get into the episode. The discussions that take place are quite intense. We move into discussions of depression, anxiety, issues related to the LGBTQI community. It varies from various topics. So please do take care. Again, these discussions are not any form of professional help. It is just a sharing platform. So again, if you need professional help, please do seek it. Today I have a special guest, something very different, a field that I did not know much about, but from our conversation, I've obviously learned more, and hopefully that's the goal of today's discussion as well. So, Margaret, if it's all right with you, would you please give an introduction and exactly what it is that you do?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much, Sneha. My name is Margaret. I am a transformation coach and an experiential learning trainer. I've been in the field of education for the past 5 years and working with different types of people from youth to adults with the idea of transformation as well as understanding how education plays a very important role in our life and how it eventually leads to a behavior change and how your attitude, your behavior, your perspective towards life is all based upon how you were brought up, how different aspects in your childhood affects your later upbringing, or how you react to certain situations. So I have been working with a lot of people over the past 5 years across India as well as in Germany. And it has been a very eye-opening experience. To be honest, even I did not know that there was something called experiential learning. And having worked with a lot of NGOs has given me that opportunity to work with the different types of audience and also explore this field a little more.
Lovely. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. Ultimately, when we have these kind of conversations, we learn more, and that's just how we can grow as human beings. So again, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I'm actually quite excited to actually do this interview and share about my experience too.
Then we won't delay it any longer. So could you give us a little about how would you say mental health connects with emotional intelligence?
So when we speak about emotional intelligence, I think when we are growing up in our school, if you look at how our curriculum is designed, the kind of subjects that we study, it only looks at logical or verbal intelligence. It does not look at any other aspect of it. But nobody tells us how to handle your emotions. What are your emotions? What are the different types of emotions and how it affects your behavior? So emotional intelligence is actually understanding yourself from very varied perspectives and how that emotion drives your behavior, your actions, and how each action has also an emotion attached to it, and how that affects your mental health. So I would say mental health is like an umbrella term which has different aspects of it. And emotions are very crucial and very central to it. When you're looking at emotional intelligence, nobody talks about, or if you look at what are interpersonal skills, how do you speak to somebody. If I ask you, can you name the emotions that you go through in a day, usually what would you say? What are the emotions that you would go through?
Mm, probably anger, sadness, very generic
Right.
statements, probably.
Correct. And over a period of time, actually, you realize you go through certain emotions like you are puzzled, you're confused. You don't necessarily need to know what we have. So many emotions that we actually are unaware of. And the thing is, we don't know how to handle them. And that's where the issue comes up when you don't know how to handle your emotions. Um, and that leads to anxiety, that leads to being very confused, feeling isolated. Are you feeling that people are not understanding you? Or maybe you feel that something is wrong with you. So that kind of leads to the whole different types of mental, it affects your mental health. And that's how emotional intelligence, I would say, is connected to mental health.
I think the term that you used, mental health, is just it's an umbrella, and there's so many different perspectives under it. I think that's the perfect analogy, and it's kind of the
Yeah.
entire point of the this particular series in this podcast, that bringing about different perspectives and trying to understand how it's not one linear kind of experience. There's just so many aspects to it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's actually, we when you look at it, even when I say I'm an experiential learning trainer, what is it that we try to help people understand is that if you look at how we are, whatever we study in our life, nobody tells us how you can apply it in your life. So that's when it's very important to understand that any situation, whatever you're studying, whatever you're learning, it should be applicable. And when you are looking at emotions, we don't know how to handle it, and that kind of manifests into different aspects of your life, and it feels everything is so chaotic. You don't know where to start from, you don't know where to end, you don't know how to handle. And that, yeah, it kind of leads to a lot of anxiety on much higher level. So yes.
Makes a lot of sense. So you've been in this field for a few years now, and you work a lot with like younger generation. So how has that been?
It's been very interesting, and it has kind of made me go back to my childhood, because I work with I have worked with children from the age of 3, I would say not 3 years, but when I was in Germany, it was more of 5 years to 6 years. But in India, I've worked over with third standard kids, with fifth standard, then 8, 9, 10th. So I would say from there on to the youth college crowd. And over a period of time, I also realized which age group do I connect with better, and how each age group looks at different things. So when I was working with the youth, that's when I felt that it's something that they are right there. We speak about working with children and making their future better. But what about the ones who are already going to step into the world and they are absolutely clueless about how to handle themselves or what to do when something happens to them? So over a period of time, I think this entire experience is not just about um, uh, working with them, but it's also very introspective also. I have also learned, unlearned a lot of things and relearned. So it made me also feel that I wish I had somebody who had come that time and helped me see the world in a different way when I was younger. I think I would have been a totally different person today.
Makes a lot of sense. I think that's a wonderful principle as a human being to live by. Being ready to understand that there are certain things that you're going to have to unlearn. There are going to be things that you need to learn, no matter what the age, no matter what the circumstance. So it's a lovely experience that you're sharing. Truly.
Yeah, I mean, I think learning never stops, right? You are at every point of time, you are learning something new. Every day, you are learning something new. But it only happens if you have that mindset that you want to learn. And if you are going with the thought that I know everything and I am going to do the way I like it, then I think it kind of reduces the way you look at things also, and um, it kind of narrows it down.
Makes a lot of sense. So, like, as an emotional agility coach, how would you advise people to take care of their emotional well-being? Do you have any sort of advice or any sort of pointers in that field?
Um, so one of the major things that, or the one of the first aspect that people need to work on when it is about emotional well-being is first to accept yourself. We somehow are always trying to figure out everything around us, and there are things constantly changing, but we forget that we are also constantly changing, and there is we have grown to be a particular person. But when you don't accept yourself, there's always a conflict there. It's like there's something called cognitive dissonance, that you have a belief, but there is something that is out there also, and there's a conflict from um your belief and the moral belief. There is a conflict, and you don't know how to do or how to take it further. So when that happens, we always feel we are misunderstood, or we feel that maybe we are not able to manage ourselves. So one of the biggest things and the most toughest thing is actually to accept the way you are, and then trying to change or tweak the way you want to tweak your life. I think that is one of the biggest things that I would actually tell people. When you are not aware of yourself, then you cannot really work on yourself.
For sure, you can't break down a problem, get to a solution for anything unless you know the problem. Not that I'm saying that
Yeah.
human beings are a problem or anything. Just I understood what you meant.
No, I think that's the thing. We always feel that we are very sorted, and or we are supposed to be very sorted. We are supposed to be completely. By this age we should be like this. By this time we should be this way. But it's not there is no universal thing, right? It's how a person is, how a person perceives the world, and what they want to do. But there is always a conflict with the outside, that's the society and yourself. And that's when the fascination to understand human behavior as well as the society also grew for me. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, I think especially like in a country like India, I feel like from the moment you're born, you have like a role that has been scripted out for you, and you're placed in that role, and you just need to follow and like sort of go ahead. And the moment you start to like gravitate towards anything else, you're automatically met with a lot of dissent. You're met with judgment, questions, and I think that sort of forces people back into a cage of not thinking about anything else. But after a certain point, like at least with me, that's what happened. I was always expected to do certain things, uh, believe certain aspects and things like that, traditions or whatever it is. But then it came to a point when I started questioning things, and then it sort of like forced me to realize that there is so much introspection that we need to do, and like being in that bubble on our own, it's not enough. Like there's so much to learn, there's so much to understand, whether it's about our own emotions, our own selves, or the people around us, the community, whatever it is.
Very true. And as you said, when the minute we are born, we have been assigned roles. So when currently I am working with an NGO called Durga, where we work towards women's safety and deterrence of sexual harassment. And one of the biggest aspect of it is about understanding or dissecting gender. And as in when, for example, when you are born, if you're a girl, you have certain expectations, and when you're a boy, you have certain other expectations. So I think in that whole societal norms and cultures and traditions, we kind of get lost, and nobody knows how to even guide us after a particular time, because we are just expected to do certain things the way it has always been done. And that's when breaking into something unconventional is always like a no-no. It's like a fear of the unknown, right? So nobody will actually, or if you're very lucky that you actually have people to support you in whatever kind of decisions that you do, that uh, you have the freedom to explore yourself and not have that fear of going wrong, because at the end of the day, what is right and what is wrong, it's all it's just a very societal concept. And what is right for you cannot be right for me, or might not be right for me. So it's a very debatable concept again, but we are still assigned certain roles. We are told to do certain things. And it is not just about gender, but even as individuals. So by this time, you should finish your education. By this time, you should get married. By this time, you should have children. So it's like a very set rule which people are expected to follow. It becomes very tiresome, and it becomes very, there's a lot of pressure. And that's when, at the end, when people don't know how to handle the emotions, that's when the pressure cooker bursts, and it just, it goes all haywire.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned that you worked with a lot of the younger generation. So personally, how have you seen the younger generations, specifically like teenagers and young adults, talk about depression?
I would say I have been hearing younger people speak about depression at an earlier age. And at the same time, people of my age also, my peer groups are also speaking about depression, and they share it. And actually, you can see that people are going out to therapy. People have reached out to certain experts or for advice how to manage it. But it's very interesting how younger people are actually speaking about it, but it's also great because there is so much exposure about it. People around there is so much because of social media. I would say the people are so even if they don't have one person to talk, they are able to connect with different communities across the world. And but also I would say there is a misconception about depression, or there is unclarity about the word or the concept itself, because people always tend to associate the emotion of sad for a prolonged period of. You might just be at the tip of falling into depression, but there is a lot more that can be done so that you don't fall into it. And what leads to depression? There's a lot of anxiety, there is a lot of disconnect, detachment. And when these aspects are not addressed, and when these aspects are being pushed to a limit where people actually feel after a point of time that they cannot connect with anybody, yes, they do fall into depression. But also I feel that the word is also kind of misused sometimes. Just because you are feeling lonely or sad, people just use it very casually. That also is very dangerous, because then the lack of information about it also is it's kind of scary. It says, there's a saying that the less you know, the more dangerous it is, because you should know either something, or uh, we should want to know. That curiosity should also be there. But yes, I have seen a lot of people speaking about it, a lot of people sharing about it at a very earlier age.
I do think that our generations, at least because of the access to the resources and well the internet as a whole, there we've
Mhm.
definitely got more of an exposure to understand these things. But again, like you said, some people do throw around that term. Any sort of normal sad episode kind of gets termed into depression, and you're right. The that word being used so loosely is extremely dangerous. It sort of takes away of the reality of the situation, and it's sort of that no information thing is without a doubt something so dangerous, especially in matters like this.
Yeah. And I would say because people also associate depression to just being, not having an interest in something or just being sad about for a long period of time. But there's just a lot more. People could be doing everything at a very normal pace, but it's about how they feel inside. It's about that hollowness that happens. And I have also come across people who feel very sadistic after a period of time because they feel that there is absolutely no connection to the outside world. So they create their own bubble. And it's very difficult for people to come out of it, of course. But at the same time, it's even more difficult to find somebody to speak with. So I do know that thankfully, people are reaching out to experts or therapists or psychologists for help. Because again, reaching out to psychologists is also kind of looked upon at a very different way, because people associate it with something is wrong with you. Why are you going to a psychologist? Till the time you're handling it with it yourself, is nobody cares. But the minute you're reaching out for professional help, people also kind of associate some kind of, I would say, why are you reaching out to somebody and something's really really wrong with you? Are you mentally ill? So there's also a lot of less information, misunderstanding of the concept itself.
Oh, absolutely. And to be very honest, I think before, when I was starting out, to like whether rather tempering with the idea of like seeking therapy, I too was very hesitant of like reaching out for help, purely because of the kind of like stigma around therapy
Right.
exists. Like you're automatically being branded as insane for some reason. I don't know. The concept of going to therapy has been so mislabeled in our society. It sort of creates a hesitancy and a fear for people to seek help when they need it. And for I don't know why we've come to think that seeking help is a sign of weakness for some reason. In my opinion, it's without a doubt one of the strongest things a human can do. Seeking help when you know you can't do it on your own, it just shows that you're aware of what your capability is, and there is no shame in accepting that you need a bit of certified professional help.
Yeah, definitely. And also, more than help, sometimes people also need a validation to just hear it from the other person, that whether what you are doing or whether what you are thinking about, whether it's okay or something is wrong. I think half the time people, whoever speak to me, though I'm not a psychologist, but when people reach out to me and when they share their stories, I feel I actually don't give them any advice. All they require is just the person to hear them out. And when the thought is out of their head, because people are constantly thinking and thinking in their mind, the conversation is constantly just going in their head, and they kind of get lost in the whole process. But when they are speaking it out to somebody, it becomes much, much more clearer to them. So you just don't even have to say much. It's just about listening. And unfortunately, we don't find a lot of people who are open to listening. I think that's the biggest skill that people must have, is the skill of listening.
Absolutely. You mentioned validation, and I'm actually so glad you brought that up. Again, I'm just I know I've probably mentioned this on other episodes as well, but I think ultimately that's kind of the entire point. The reason I've like making this effort of sharing different perspectives and sharing different stories is I've always felt like the moment people hear these kind of experiences, these kind of discussions, and if they could resonate with even like 1% of what is being spoken, it validates their experiences and it acknowledges their emotions. And I think that does so much for a person. It gives them that sensation that they're not alone, that they're not crazy. So that validation and having someone to talk to, it makes a huge difference. It really does.
Yeah, definitely. I think when even for me, I would say that my whole journey of figuring out what exactly I wanted to do, I also went through a lot of questioning and lot of self-doubt, and because doing something so different also comes with its own challenges, because nobody can tell you how to go about anything. So then the personal whatever all the emotions that you're going through, plus you have to figure out your space in the world, it's so tiresome at the same time. There's so much of fear, there is so much of uncertainty that also kind of puts you down, and you feel that, oh my god, I really have nobody to speak with at this point of time. And I think over a period of time that you find people, you understand who you are more comfortable with. And I think if anybody finds out, or if you have anyone who you think that you can share even a slightest aspect of your life, it's very important. Just blurt it out. I think we get stuck in our mind, and we need to get out of our heads, and that's the first thing that we should start doing.
Absolutely. There's just something about having someone to talk to. It even if they don't have the answers, just letting it build up in your head, and letting it let those feelings build up inside you, it'll eventually, like you said, the pressure cooker's gonna go off at one point. So getting it out and
Yeah.
having someone to vent to, even if they don't have the answers, it's like you said, sometimes all you need is just a person to listen.
Yeah, definitely. I think there is no one answer also, right? We are all trying out different methods. We are all trying our way of handling with emotions, handling with the situation. So it all comes with trial and error, because there is absolutely no one way of doing anything.
Absolutely. Everyone's brains are wired different. We all process emotions different. You're right. It's completely trial and error. But I think that's so important to like remember that because it's trial and error, you have to keep giving it a go. Like, don't get
Yeah.
demoralized, don't get demotivated if you haven't found your right rhythm yet, because you will. It might take some time, but you most definitely will.
Yeah, definitely. And that fear of, whether what if I go wrong? I think that is something that it's fine. If you go wrong, you go wrong. You try a different way, and who's going to judge you? We are so scared of judgments, and we think that what will the world say? What will people say? Who are these people? How are their judgments going to affect your life? Aren't you the one dealing your emotions? Are they dealing it for you? No, they are not. You are the one who have to live with it, manage it, and actually look for peace, right? We're all fine wanting to look for that inner peace. And if it happens over a period of time.
Absolutely. So, could you share a little about how does a session typically go about a session with you? So, what would be the prime focus be?
A session with me, if it is an experiential learning session, it would be first of all breaking your boundaries, getting out of your comfort zone. I do a lot of movement based sessions. Now, since it is the whole pandemic situation, it's completely different and it makes it even more difficult. But otherwise, when there is a live session, we are all together. It's more about, first of all, getting comfortable with yourself. If one of the biggest things that I have noticed is the body language of people. We are so stuck in our structure that we don't explore the different levels that is around. Like, we don't move our hands that openly. We don't occupy our space. We don't claim the space around. So one of the biggest things that, and the first thing that I do in my session is that you need to get comfortable with your body, with yourself, and the people around you. Only then you will be not hesitant to share who you are. So that is the first aspect. But if I look at the prime focus, is I look at a few things, which is getting awareness, consistency, choices, empathy, patience, and tolerance. I look at all these aspects. So these are the major themes. What is empathy? How do you explain empathy? How do you experience empathy? And how do you become empathetic towards someone? What is the difference between sympathy and empathy? That these words are always like completely interchangeably used, but what is the meaning of it? How aware are you of yourself? um, how aware are we of the other person that we are with? Because we always look at ourselves in isolation, but when we are put in a group, the group dynamic completely affects your behavior. So that also is very crucial to a session. How are you individually as well as in a group? So using different activities, different games. I play a lot of games. I am a very games person. I will, if there is a theme, I will actually use a game to achieve the the topic or the theme, and then there would be like a debrief about it. Because I am not there as a teacher or a trainer, actually. I am more as a facilitator. I'm just going to facilitate or moderate the session. I will give you the problem. Now, this is a problem you guys have. Solve it. Now, tell me how you felt. The problem is, whatever that we have done, whatever that we do or study, nobody asks us, how did you feel? How are you feeling? The feeling aspect of it is always missing. So feeling is very crucial to my sessions. So prime focus is about feelings. It is about awareness. It is about breaking your boundaries, opening up, getting out of your comfort zone. That's the first aspect of it.
I'm learning so much. Like I said in the start, this wasn't something that I had any sort of knowledge about, and I'm so grateful for this conversation that we've gotten a chance to have, because I'm genuinely learning so much.
I'm glad. There's so much more, that's the thing. It's like a Pandora's box. There is so much more. There is, and once you get a hang of it, right, then you start looking at everything in a very different way. It's never about quantity. It's always about quality. What is it that people are wanting to experience? How should a workshop be? It should never be a lecture format where you tell them something and they do something and they just leave. They should leave elated. They should feel like, oh my god, I am leaving as a different person altogether. And the sessions are also very sensitive, at the same time very in depth. So it has to be very, I would say, the design of it is created in a way that first you become comfortable with yourself, then you become comfortable with the people around you. And now what are you going to do with it? How are you going to leave from here? And what are you going to take with you?
It makes a lot of sense. I genuinely do intend on continuing to read about this now. It's
Please do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean,
I think one of the first sorry.
No, please.
I think one of the first things which kind of stayed with me was the concept of multiple intelligence by Howard Gardner, where he spoke about there are 9 types of intelligences. And that's like visual intelligence, spatial intelligence, kinesthetic intelligence, interpersonal, intrapersonal, musical. There are like so many. There's naturalistic, there is existential. So it's like we are a combination of different intelligences. Some people are very good at music. They understand rhythm. They understand tune. Some people are brilliant in expression through their body. Some people can they can visualize something they're very visual. Like you have to show them something, only that's when they understand. Uh, and how these can be converted into, like, people who are architects. They are very good at their spatial intelligence. They can look at a place and they can visualize or they can imagine how it could be. There are dancers who are brilliantly, that's how the kinesthetic intelligence comes into being. There are writers who write about, they are the intrapersonal intelligence is high because they are able to express their emotions in a better way and they're able to write it down. So, and there is verbal, there is linguistics, logical. And that's the funny part. Our education system only looks at logical and verbal. All our subjects like mathematics, science, and everything will fall under logical, and all languages fall under verbal. Uh, what about the other intelligence? It's never explored, or it is left to be co-curricular. And I think I hate that word because it should not be co-curricular. It should be curricular. That's how you can, you know, provide an opportunity to first let the child decide what area that the child wants to experience and wants to explore. We leave it as co-curricular, and then we stop giving it importance as in when the standards start increasing. So by the time you have reached 10th standard, your co-curriculars really don't matter, but your academics are given more importance. So the person also starts losing the interest, not interest, but people around them. What is the use of it? Why are you writing music, or why are you playing it? Or you either have to be really great to become a huge singer, or it's always looked at how you can materialize into economically in terms of money. Whether if you become a singer, will you be able to make money? If you are a dancer, will you be able to make money? Is that an occupation which you can take up? So it's a very money driven society that we live in. So it kind of narrows down our way of looking at the world also.
Correct. I think again this comes like you mentioned, in school you're automatically forced to focus more on your logical subjects, your math, science, and your academics. And once you come to 10th, it's your co-curriculars don't even exist. I think again this all comes down to how like society has this sort of like set way of how life should be, and everything seems to just confine itself to that same established norm, and breaking that norm and trying to like look at the world from other sides, it's something that we're still yet to reach, especially in India and our education system.
Yeah, I would say yes, especially in India and our education system, because outside is a totally different. It's a totally different story. When I would say that if I could share that when I was in Germany, I met 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, actually speaking about politics. It's not with a political party that they're speaking, but they're talking about political ideologies. So that is one aspect. They are more aware about the environment, and they're very clear about what they want to do. Here, if you speak to a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, I don't think so you would get the same. Not all, maybe some, but I wouldn't say on a majority. I don't think so. People are even thinking of that aspect. It's more about getting marks and getting into a college. There is no concept about volunteering. I think that is one of the very, very important thing, which I think every school, every college should, as a education system, they should implement it. That every student should be a part of a volunteering program, whether it is India or abroad, doesn't matter. But when you are able to have that space to learn and experience life firsthand, then you will be able to you'll be a little more confident about what kind of decisions that you want to take. We have never been told, or we have never been given the space to take a decision. When you are young, they say you're too young. When you're old, they say, oh, suddenly when you are in after your graduation, they expect you to just be like, oh, why can't you just take a decision? You're old enough. But all your life you've never been given a space to take a decision, so you also doubt your decisions, and that's when you fall on to people like maybe your parents, your whoever that you confide in, saying that okay, maybe what if they are saying maybe makes more sense, maybe I should just go ahead with that. But you've never gotten a chance to experience or explore your decisions, whether what you think is right or wrong. So these are all experiences which should happen throughout your childhood. It shouldn't be like bam, take it and go. That becomes even more difficult. That's when that emotional outburst happens.
Makes sense. A lot of times you'll find the older generations, especially when you give your opinion about things. At least I've experienced this firsthand in my family. and in my circles, a lot of times when I give my opinion, I'm automatically sort of like the reaction is like, you don't know enough, you haven't experienced anything yet, we know more, we've done this, we've done that. I feel like in those moments, I want to say that the reason I don't have that experience is because you don't let me get that experience. And at the same time, I always do feel that in certain aspects at least, the experience that they have, the situation in which that they got that experience is very different from the situation it is now. We're looking at resources and um, resources and what where
Exposure.
exposure for sure. Yeah, I was struggling with that word. It was at the tip of my tongue actually. Exposure. So I feel like those circumstances also need to be applied before like you automatically shut off whether any sort of opinion.
Yes, yes, definitely. I mean, that way, as some numerous, situations where I have also come across when suddenly people say, "Oh, you don't know enough. Let us, we know better. We have seen more world than you have." I totally agree, but you have not seen the world which is now, and we also want to just like even the concept about taking a year off, for example. Nobody takes a year off after school or college. Everybody, it's like set. You finish your school, you jump into college, you get a job, and then mostly get married, have children, la la la. And it's never, there is no gap for you to understand yourself. And by the time you want to, you already have so many things on your plate. You have responsibilities, you have a family, you have parents, you have so many things to handle. That's when it becomes like a, what do you call it, khichdi of everything.
Yeah, it makes sense. But we're just coming to the conclusion part of our interview. So just before we get to the final bit, so do you have any particular practices or exercises that you would recommend to help focus on developing our emotional intelligence? I'm sure the listeners would be very grateful for any insight.
I think one of the biggest or the first things can do or everybody should be able to do is what one there's something called the power of language, the kind of language that you speak with yourself. When you say I don't, you're constantly telling the same sentence to yourself that I don't think so, I can do this, I don't think so, I can do this. And when you can't do it, you see that, okay, see, I told you I can't do it. So you are like reaffirming yourself that, see, that you are not able. The language that you speak with yourself kind of when you something positive. The minute you start saying things like I will do it, or I can make this happen, that's actually changed the way you look at everything. The more you start looking everything very negatively, you will only attract negativity towards you, and you will also look at the world in a very negative way, and you will not look at the possibilities of how you can solve a problem. You will always look at it, I think I will never get it done. I'll give you an example. I always used to say that I am not good with managing money, saying it to myself. And it kind of always happened. And when it happened that I didn't have money with me at the end of the month, so you're kind of looking for evidence to prove it. And when you prove it, you feel a little happy inside, but at the same time, you know that you are having a crisis. But when I started looking at flipping the language and I started saying it like, I will manage my money better. I will understand how to manage my money better. Either way, you have to make it more personal. And when you do that, I started looking at things in a very different way. There was a time when I was doing 4 jobs, and it was not about the money anymore. It was about how everything around me just changed. So it is the language that you speak with yourself. That's very, very important. And I think that is one thing which I would recommend people to do. Write down all your negative sentences that you constantly keep telling yourself and flip the language.
Lovely. I think this is something that even I will definitely start to put in practice because I think I have also I'm also guilty of saying things like that to myself, that I can't do it. I'm not. This is not my cup of tea. I will also definitely give this a try. Again, I'm learning so much, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity.
But you should do it every day. It's not a one day thing. It will definitely not happen in 2 3 days. It's actually ever expanding, ever changing, ever evolving. So as in when you start with small sentences, and as in when you are doing different things in life, your negative conversations in your head will be much more complicated. So you have to be very mindful of what you are talking. I think that is one of the very important aspect. You have to be careful about what you're telling to yourself. I'm not saying be cautious, but look at how you're speaking with yourself. And if that changes, a lot of things around you will change.
Thank you so much. I'm sure that this discussion has opened my eyes to a lot of new things. Will for my listeners as well. So before we wind up, do you have any final advice or any final thoughts that you want to leave for anyone, or any questions, anything you want to say?
I would say that never stop exploring who you are. Never let that curiosity die within. There is so much to the world. There is so much to you, and it's like I look at myself like we all have so much within, and there is a lot which is not explored. And if you go with the mindset of exploring yourself, then you will see that the world is your oyster. That's what I would say.
That is such a lovely thought to end on. Thank you so much, Margaret, for taking the time to speak with me. I'm incredibly grateful for what I've gotten a chance to learn now, and I hope that I can continue to learn like this. And I most definitely will be reading more, for sure.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much, Neha, for actually reaching out. And this is a brilliant concept altogether about bringing new things to the listeners, to people. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and making me also feel great
I'm so glad
about
that
speaking.
you were comfortable.
Definitely, I'm always open to sharing these thoughts, because I also know that I never had a lot of opportunities to figure out what I wanted. And if I am of help to anyone who's listening right now, I think my purpose in life is done.
Honestly, the ultimate the reason why I even started Mind Matters was because these were conversations that I wish I had during some those difficult times that I had gone through, and I got so tired of waiting for that conversation, someone around to start it, and I had a couple of breakthrough moments, especially in 2020. And I kind of decided that, you know what, I'm going to stop waiting and I'm going to try and start the conversation myself. And to the people in my circle also know, I keep saying this, it doesn't matter if if 1,000 people listen to this, or if only 5 people listen to this. If even one person feels like a little less alone from what I'm doing, I feel like I have this initiative is a success. So I understand what you mean by helping out that one person
Definitely.
also.
Actually, thank you so much for actually putting something like this together. And when you are looking for something and when you create it yourself, it's a totally different experience and totally different feeling. So I would say explore, experience, and enjoy life, and reach out wherever people require help. And it's never late to ask for help.
Explore, experience, and enjoy. That's such a lovely way to end this episode. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Neha. Thank you.
And that was Mind Matters Perspectives. Tune back next week for another episode. Thank you. Love and light to all.